In 30 years of carrying a county badge, I learned something that no manual ever taught me. Houses aren't just wood and plaster. They hold on to things, memories, arguments, regrets. And sometimes they hold on to the last moments of a life. I've seen a lot in this job. Deputies vanish from a running patrol car, coffee still warm on the dashboard. A family of 7, 3 generations, dead at the exact same second. No wounds, no poison, no explanation. A man whose body was still breathing but whose soul had been beaten right out of him by a mob. A living ghost, walking, talking, empty. And I've seen what happens when you insult the dead. A careless word over a grave, a joke at a funeral, a bulldozer scraping up a forgotten cemetery. The dead don't forget, they don't forgive, and they have all the time in the world to wait. But this case was different. This case had video evidence, security footage, grainy black and white, time-stamped, the kind of footage that makes your blood run cold because you can't argue with it. You can't explain it away. It's right there, on the screen, playing over and over again. The homeowner's name was David Carver. He was 42 years old. He lived in a suburban house on the outskirts of a town called Millbrook, Ohio. He had a wife, 2 kids, and a golden retriever. He worked as an IT consultant. He was practical, logical, the kind of man who didn't believe in ghosts until he installed security cameras around his property. It started with a break-in. A few months earlier, someone had broken into his neighbor's garage, stolen some tools, nothing major, but it made David nervous. He had a family. He wanted to protect them. So he bought a 4-camera security system, infrared, motion-activated, high definition. He installed them himself, one on the front porch, one on the back porch, one on the garage, and one pointing at the side gate. For the first few weeks, the cameras captured nothing unusual. A stray cat, a delivery truck, the neighbor's kid cutting across the lawn, normal suburban stuff. David checked the footage every morning over his coffee. It became a routine, a habit. He liked the peace of mind. Then one morning he saw something that didn't make sense. It was the back porch camera. Timestamp 3:07 a.m. The footage showed a man standing in the backyard. He was tall, thin, wearing what looked like an old-fashioned suit, dark coat, wide-brimmed hat, the kind of hat men wore in the 1940s. He was standing perfectly still, facing the house, just standing there, not moving, not looking around, just staring at the back door. David watched the footage 3 times. He checked the time, 3:07 a.m. He checked the date. It was from the night before. He looked out the window. No one was there. He checked the locks. Everything was secure. He told himself it was probably a neighbor, a guest, someone walking through the yard. He deleted the footage and went about his day. But the next morning, there he was again. Same man, same suit, same hat, same exact spot. Timestamp 3:07 a.m., standing perfectly still, staring at the back door. David started to get worried. He checked the other cameras. Front porch, nothing. Garage, nothing. Side gate, nothing. Just the back porch camera. Every night at exactly 3:07 a.m., this man appeared. He never came closer. He never left. He was just there. And then at 3:08 a.m., he was gone. Disappeared. Like he had never been there at all. David called the police. They sent an officer. The officer reviewed the footage. He said it was probably a neighbor, maybe sleepwalking or confused. He said he'd drive by at night and check it out. He did. He saw nothing. No one was there. The footage the next morning showed the man again, at 3:07 a.m., standing perfectly still, staring at the back door. The police stopped responding. They said there was nothing they could do. No crime had been committed, no threat had been made, just a man on private property. They told David to get a dog, install a fence, call them if anything actually happened. David was frustrated. He was scared, and he didn't know what to do. That's when he called the county. He wanted a property assessment. He wanted to know who owned the land behind his house. Maybe there was an easement. Maybe someone had legal access. Maybe there was an explanation. That's when I got the file. I drove out to Millbrook on a Thursday morning. The house was a typical suburban home. 2 stories, white siding, blue shutters, well maintained. David met me at the door. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired from a long day, the kind from not sleeping for weeks. He invited me in. He showed me the security footage. I watched it on his laptop. The first time I thought it was a glitch, a reflection, something. But the second time, I saw it clearly. A man, tall, thin, standing in the backyard. Timestamp 3:07 a.m. He was wearing clothes from another era, dark suit, wide-brimmed hat. The kind of hat I remembered seeing in photographs from my grandfather's time. He wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. He was just standing there, staring at the back door. David said, "I know it sounds crazy, Mr. Frank, but I think he's a ghost. I think he's the original owner of this house. I think he's trying to come home." I asked him how he knew about the original owner. He said he found an old deed in the basement. The original owner was a man named Thomas Whitmore. He built the house in 1945. He lived there with his wife and daughter. He was a businessman, respectable, quiet. In 1952, something happened, something bad. The family disappeared. No one knew where they went. The house sat empty for years. And then it changed hands, changed hands, changed hands. No one ever stayed for long. They said the house felt wrong. They said it felt like someone was watching them. David looked at me. His hands were shaking. "They were right," he said. "Someone is watching me, every night. At 3:07 a.m. He's standing in my backyard, looking at my house, looking at my family. And I don't know what he wants." I left David Carver's house with a copy of the security footage on a USB drive. I drove home that evening and watched it on my own computer. I watched it 20 times. Each time the same thing. A man, standing in the backyard, staring at the house. Timestamp 3:07 a.m. He never moved. He never blinked. He just stood there. And then at 3:08 a.m., he was gone. I started to think about the house, about the land, about the original owner, Thomas Whitmore. Who was he? What happened to him? Why was he coming back? I decided to do some digging. I went to the county records office. I pulled the file on the Whitmore property. It was thick, older than most. The deed was dated 1945. The house was built by Thomas Whitmore himself. He was a businessman, owned a small manufacturing company, made buttons, belt buckles, things like that. He was successful, respected. He had a wife named Margaret and a daughter named Eleanor. I read through the file. Everything was normal until 1952. That's when the file went blank. No tax records, no property transfers, nothing. It was like the family had just stopped existing. I asked the clerk about it. She said the records from that year were incomplete. There had been a fire, a small one. It destroyed some old files, but not all of them. I decided to talk to the neighbors. I found an elderly woman named Hazel Dawson. She was 91 years old. She had lived on the same street since 1940. She remembered the Whitmores well. "The Whitmores," she said. "Oh, I remember them. Thomas was a good man, a hard worker. He loved his family. He loved that house. He built it himself, you know, bricks by bricks. He said he wanted to build a home that would last forever, a home his grandchildren would live in." Hazel paused. She looked out the window. But something happened. In 1952, Thomas changed. He became quiet, distant. He stopped coming outside. He stopped talking to people. He just stayed in that house. His wife, Margaret, she tried to keep up appearances. She would wave from the porch. She would bring cookies to the church bake sale. But everyone knew something was wrong. I asked her what happened. She sighed. Their daughter, Eleanor, she got sick. Polio. This was back in the 50s, you see, before the vaccines. She was 12 years old, a bright girl, beautiful. She was going to be a teacher. She wanted to travel, but she got sick. She was in the hospital for months. Thomas was devastated. He blamed himself. He said he should have protected her. He said he should have kept her safe. Hazel leaned forward. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Eleanor died in the hospital. It was Christmas Eve, 1952. Thomas never recovered. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping. He just sat in that house, staring at the walls. Margaret tried to help him, but he pushed her away. He pushed everyone away. And then one day, she was gone. Just like that. She packed a bag and left. She couldn't stay anymore. She said the house was haunted. She said Thomas was haunted. She said she didn't want to be part of a ghost story. I asked Hazel what happened to Thomas after Margaret left. She shook her head. No one knows. He stayed in that house, alone. He stopped paying taxes. He stopped answering the door. The mail piled up. The grass grew wild. People said he died in there. They said he just lay down in his bed one night and never got up. But no one ever found the body. They searched the house, the backyard, the basement. Nothing. He just vanished, like he was never there. I sat there in Hazel's living room. The clock ticked. The wind rattled the windows. I thought about Thomas Whitmore, a man who had lost everything, his daughter, his wife, his sanity. He had built a home that was supposed to last forever, and then he had vanished into it. I went back to David Carver's house. I told him about Thomas Whitmore, about Eleanor, about Margaret, about the disappearance. David listened in silence. He looked pale. He said, "He's coming back for his family. He wants to find them. He wants to bring them home. But he can't. Because they're not here. They're gone. And he's still looking." I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. I had seen a lot of strange things in this job, but I had never seen a ghost that appeared on camera. I had never seen a ghost that left evidence, a ghost that could be recorded, a ghost that could be watched, over and over again. I told David I would stay overnight. I wanted to see the backyard at 3:07 a.m. I wanted to see if Thomas Whitmore would show up for me. David set up a chair in the backyard. He placed it facing the house. He said, "Just wait. He'll come. He always comes." I sat in the chair. The night was cold. The wind was still. The house behind me was dark. The street in front of me was empty. I looked at my watch. 3 a.m., 7 minutes to go. At 3:04 a.m., I felt it. A change in the air. a pressure drop, like someone had just walked into the room. I looked around. Nothing. I looked at the house. Nothing. I looked at the backyard. And then I saw him, standing at the edge of the property, tall, thin, dark suit, wide-brimmed hat. He was just standing there, staring at the house, staring at me. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched him. He didn't move either. He just stood there. And then I heard it, a voice, soft, distant, like it was coming from a long way away. It said, "Can you hear me?" I nodded. "Yes," I said, "I can hear you." The man took a step forward, then another. He was coming closer. I could see his face now. He was old, worn, tired. His eyes were empty, but there was a desperation in them, a longing. He said, "I can't find them. I've been looking for so long. I can't find them." I asked him who he was looking for. He said, "My daughter, my wife. I lost them. I lost them all. I built this house for them. I built it to keep them safe. But I couldn't keep them safe. I failed them, and now I can't find them." I told him, "They're not here. They left. Your wife left. Your daughter died. They're not coming back." The man looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. "I know," he said, "but I can't stop looking. This was my home. This was my life. I can't leave it. I can't let go." He was still coming closer. I could feel the cold now, the cold of death, the cold of a man who had been searching for decades. I stood up from the chair. I walked toward him. He stopped. He looked at me. He said, "Please, help me find them, help me let go." I reached out my hand. I touched his shoulder. It was cold, so cold. And then he was gone, just like that. The air warmed, the pressure lifted. I was alone again in the backyard. At 3:08 a.m., he was gone, just like the footage showed. I didn't tell David what I had seen. I didn't tell him about the voice, about the tears, about the desperation. I just told him to move, to leave that house, to sell it, to never come back. He asked me why. I told him, because he's not going to stop. He's been looking for his family for 70 years. He's not going to leave until he finds them. And they're not coming back. You are not going to bring them back. You are just going to get caught in his search. You need to leave. David moved out the next month. He sold the house at a loss. He and his family moved to another state. He sent me a letter a few months later. He said his kids were sleeping better. He said his wife was sleeping better. He said he had stopped checking the security cameras. He said he had thrown them away. He said he had never looked back. I kept a copy of the security footage. I never told anyone about it. I never showed it to anyone. I just kept it, in my desk drawer, with Arthur Winthrop's letter. I watched it sometimes, on nights when I couldn't sleep, when the house was too quiet, when the wind was too still. I would watch the man in the dark suit, standing in the backyard, staring at the house. At 3:07 a.m., every single night, I started to think about Thomas Whitmore more often, about a man who built a house to protect his family, who lost his daughter to a disease he couldn't stop, who lost his wife to grief he couldn't overcome, who lost himself to the search for something he couldn't find. He spent the rest of his life looking for a family that was already gone. And when he died, he kept looking. He didn't stop. He couldn't stop, because the house he built was his prison, a beautiful prison, a prison of love and loss and regret. I often wonder if he ever found them, if he ever crossed that line between worlds and found his wife and daughter waiting for him, if he ever found peace. I don't think he did. I think he's still standing in that backyard, still staring at that house, still waiting, still searching, still hoping. And I think about David Carver, a man who didn't believe in ghosts, a man who installed security cameras to protect his family, a man who caught a ghost on tape, a ghost that came back every night at 3:07 a.m., a ghost that was looking for its family, a ghost that reminded him that even in death there is loss. Even in death there is longing. Even in death there is a search that never ends. I think about the footage, grainy, black and white, time-stamped, evidence, proof, a ghost on camera, a ghost that no one could explain, a ghost that shouldn't have existed, but it did. It does. And it probably still exists, somewhere, in Millbrook, Ohio, in a suburban house, on a security camera, every night at 3:07 a.m. I learned a lot from this case. I learned that technology doesn't always protect us, that cameras don't always keep us safe, that sometimes they show us things we wish we hadn't seen, that sometimes they show us things that shouldn't be possible. And I learned that grief doesn't end with death. It continues. It evolves. It becomes something else. Something that stands in backyards. Something that stares at houses. Something that searches for a family that's no longer there. I closed the file on David Carver. Case closed. But I keep the footage in my desk drawer. I watch it sometimes. When I'm feeling lost. When I'm feeling alone. When I'm wondering if anyone is looking for me. I watch it, and I remind myself that there are worse things than being alone. There is being forgotten. There is being lost. There is being trapped in a house you built, searching for a family that never came home. Thomas Whitmore had all of those things. He was forgotten. He was lost. He was trapped. And he's still trapped, 70 years later. He's still standing in that backyard, still staring at that house, still searching for his daughter, still searching for his wife, still searching for someone to bring him home. But no one ever comes, and no one ever will.